Support comes from St. Louis Public Library Foundation, helping the library serve children and their families with programs and services needed to become lifelong readers. More information about the foundation is at slpl.org.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. Over the last 7 years, folks have flocked to Tower Grove Park in St. Louis for Frizz Fest, a day-long summer celebration of Black women and their hair, health, art, and culture, as well as Black woman-led businesses and organizations. The event has grown in popularity each year because it is legit a really good time for people of all ages. But its appeal is deeper than fun. And for Black women who work in professional settings, be they corporate or nonprofit, Frizz Fest is an occasion to let their hair down or whichever way they want to do it, and they do so without scrutiny. Producer Miya Norfleet talked with attendees at the festival a couple weeks back about their personal experiences, and she joins me now to share what she learned. Miya, welcome back.
Thank you.
So Miya, you've been to Frizz Fest over the years. How did this year compare to the rest?
Yeah, every year it gets bigger and bigger. And I know that's kind of crazy, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense unless you go. But if anybody's ever been to Tower Grove Park, you know how large it is. And literally the footprint just expands wider and wider towards the middle. I got there this year right when it started to get ready and to buy things. But I was talking to someone, I turned around, and it was suddenly just like a huge crowd of people. I'm like, oh my goodness. So it's been really nice to see how many people have found this event, found this space to be themselves.
Mm-hmm. Now, this year's Frizz Fest was 70s themed, the era of disco, funk, and really big afros. And I was there too. It was wonderful. And the tagline for this year was simply safe, seen, and celebrated. Mm-hmm. Did any of the attendees share struggles they've experienced as Black women in the workforce specifically, Miya?
Yeah, so one of the first people I got to talk to at Frizz Fest is a woman named Jada Harrell. And she was sharing with me that she works in the industrial food service in a company that builds kitchen equipment, basically. And she's one of the few Black women at her job. And one of the things we talked about is just when issues arise, or not even like a confrontation, just like a disagreement, people talking to people, that's bound to happen. Sometimes the way that folks react to Black women specifically can be unfair and a little disheartening. So that was a big thing we talked about.
It's heavy. It's beautiful. It's both beautiful and heavy, because when I walk in, I know that I'm looked at as something, an oddity in the space. So when I do things that they think are great, you get that praise from that place of, oh, we have this brilliant Black woman on our team. But then again, with what I experienced this week, I had an issue where me and a coworker had a turbulent time, and then I was seen as somebody that makes people uncomfortable, so it's a fine line, and it switches very fast based on their perspective. So it is hard. It's it can be heavy sometimes. You don't always feel like you have the safe space to be yourself. Because when I do things, I have to think about how it's perceived versus just being able to present myself like a, regular person, or, as my full identity.
So this fullness of identity is really what grounds Frizz Fest. Right. It is billed as a natural hair and beauty festival. And just last year, we had its founder, Leslie Hughes, on this show to discuss the Crown Act. And that is an act that would ban discrimination based on hair texture and hairstyles. Just as a note here, the Missouri House unanimously endorsed the Crown Act this spring, but it didn't make it out of the state legislature. Right. So Miya, when you went to Frizz Fest for your own personal enjoyment, you also this time, you took your recording gear in anticipation of a conversation that we had last Friday with Jennifer Drake. Yep. And Jennifer has been organizing an event called Black Women at Work. And that event, which happens tomorrow, is all about the difficult experiences of Black women in the workplace. What did you hear regarding that particular sort of experience around hair-based discrimination or appearance, Miya?
Yeah, so, and for a lot of people that aren't Black necessarily, it can be kind of one of those things where it's like, what's the big deal? It's just hair. Well, it's crazy because it's a huge deal. It can stop people from getting a job, from upward mobility to, you can have all the education in the world, but somebody can look at you and say like, I don't like the way you look, just not because I don't like it, but you look a certain way and I have a preconceived notion and I've made up this whole narrative about you just because of your hair. And, I talked to this woman, her name is Ashley Wilkerson, a whole lot about that. She works in healthcare and billing. And she shared with me how she was afraid to even have her natural hair just to do an interview. And how it really kind of just froze her in place.
I think they're going to clash just because of what society say professionalism is and what it should look like. So I automatically think it should clash. Going to clash, it's being more accepted because more people just, taking on, I'm just going to be me if you want me. If you don't want me, then you don't want me. But it's definitely a clash. Just locks. I was scared to get locks. I was scared to go on an interview with locks in my hair. So that's just one example.
Why were you afraid to go into an interview with locks?
Just because I wanted to look like everybody else. I was interviewing for a professional, quote unquote, position, and I wanted to make sure I was, I maybe had some straight hair or, so they'll be comfortable with me, won't look at me like, no, you look too authentic.
Authentic.
Yeah.
So, Miya, you also spoke with others in addition to Jada and Ashley. Mm-hmm. Who else was willing to talk with you about this?
Yeah, I got to talk with Relda Brooks. She is a professional in a nonprofit serving area youth, and she's in her 60s. She also has daughters that are millennials, kind of around the same age of Jada and Ashley. And it was encouraging and kind of heartbreaking talking to Relda because she's an older woman, but she's experienced being a Black woman in the workplace for a lot longer. And one of the things that she shared with me is how it was only really recently that she's been able to feel comfortable, not just in her appearance, but even as her personality, as her, and how she feels it is to be a Black woman.
I am I say this at my organization, the most liberated person because, again, I'm 64, so I came up in an age demographic where we had to, do certain things. But now I'm very respectful. I want everybody to be respectful, but I show up as I am. And I'm happy about that because, I can mirror that for my daughters, which are 33 and 38, as they're coming up in their professional careers.
And specifically, when we talk about what professionalism look like, everyone that I talked to said that professionalism comes from this idea based in what whiteness looks like. So you heard Ashley talk about straight hair. Black women have straightened their hair with chemicals that we now know can cause cancer just to be able to show up in the workplace and keep a job. That's how serious something as simple, so-called simple as hair can be.
Mm-hmm. Well, Miya, you are a Black woman in the workplace, and you've had your own experiences, right, with this. So what was it like to be in that space at Frizz Fest, and also to hear the comments that Jennifer Drake made on Friday about the things that are necessary for Black women to feel supported and willing to stay in the workplace without taking the risks that come with, starting your own business?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway is how, just the conversation, right? Conversations can be very healing. The places like Frizz Fest, places like Black Women at Work, the event tomorrow, just to be able to look at someone else and be like, you're not crazy, you're not tripping, this is a real life thing. They can also be really frustrating because you have so many conversations like, what don't you get about my experience? I've talked about it so much. But you can't really find solutions unless you have those conversations, unless you feel comfortable to have those conversations and that the person listening to you can receive that information and actually find solutions. So conversations, it can be redundant, but I think they're really necessary for any improvement.
Miya Norfleet is a producer for St. Louis on the Air. Miya, thanks for joining us to talk with us about this today.
Absolutely.
This episode was produced by Miya Norfleet.
Our audio engineer is Aaron Dorr. This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
The Gateway brings you the day's news each weekday from around the St. Louis region and the state capitals in Jefferson City.
Our schools are accredited. We don't need this bill.
And Springfield.
How many more years must pass before lawmakers see time is of the essence?
I'm Abby Larico. Join me each weekday for The Gateway on the STLPR app or wherever you get podcasts.